when I was around about 7 or 8 years old, I had an experience of going to bed and going to sleep and drifting out of a window.
Right.
And from drifting out of the window, I was then in a stadium with two beings either side of me, and looking down on a football-sized pitch of white light, and in the centre of that football pitch was a ship with people coming on and off that ship.
Right. How you managed to get out of the house?
It was floating out of the window.
Right. So was the window open, do you recall, or do you?
No, it was closed.
So do you feel you went through the window?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And would you say that was you were in a dream state or were you in a conscious state? What?
Reflecting on it, it was half dreaming and half realising that I felt floating.
Right. So this experience was so vivid, you've remembered it for your whole life.
It was a dream that has stayed with me and is as visual now as when I experienced it.
Okay. Might you be able to describe these beings?
No, okay. I cannot. Yeah, all I can say is that they were either side of me, and they wanted me to look down.
Did you have any sense of where you were? Had you been taken away from your house?
Yes, yeah, I'd been taken away from my house. This place was, I'd never experienced anything.
Right. Tell me about your first conscious recollection in the morning. What happened then?
My mum came into the room, and I was on a windowsill, which is probably 4 or 5 feet, 4.5 feet tall, and I was on the window ledge, hanging on to the window.
Right.
And my mum said, "What are you doing up there?" And
right.
I explained what I'd just I'd experienced.
So when you're clinging onto the window, are you saying that your feet were not on the actual?
They were on the windowsill.
All right.
My feet were on the windowsill.
Right. So you were quite high up.
Yeah.
For a small child.
Yeah.
Right. And had you climbed onto that windowsill before, in previous to that?
No.
Right. So you're on the windowsill, which is 4.5 feet up, and your feet are on there as well, and your hands. So you're completely on the window. So was it a normal sort of 7-8 inch windowsill sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And you so what were you sort of like crouched down on it?
The small top window was open, and I had my hand just outside holding on to the outside of the window on the frame.
And did you feel that you'd been outside when you realised you were in this position on the windowsill? Or do you?
No.
Right, okay, so you weren't sure what had happened?
No.
And have you got any recollection of how you may have got on that windowsill then?
No. No, right. None at all.
Okay.
It was only the disturbance of my mum walking into my bed, opening the door, walking into the bedroom, that I'd realised I was there.
Right. Something else that you told me about, not long after that you noticed something. Just tell us about that.
2 or 3 days later, I was playing in my bedroom when I just, something in me, I directly put my hand to my throat and felt this object in my throat.
Right.
Nothing, there was no mark there or anything, or it wasn't sore or anything, but it was just something in me that just went straight to it.
Right.
And I felt this sharp object within, under the skin.
Now, any marks on the skin at the time at all?
No.
Nothing at
None
all?
at all.
Okay. And how long after this incident on the windowsill did you notice it, would you say?
I'd say 2 or 3 days
2
later.
or 3 days. Okay, so you've obviously lived with it all your life, this tiny lump in your neck, which I've actually felt earlier on today. And so you must have an idea for the size and the shape and the consistency of it, whether it's hard or soft or pliable or whatever.
I'd say it's triangular in shape. It's, I can feel at least 3 points. And I'd say it's probably 2 millimeters from top to bottom, I'd say.
Right, so you think it's like a piece of Dairy Lee cheese sort of thing, sort of shape?
Yeah.
Right, and it's got a thickness of a few millimeters, you think?
Couple of mil, yeah.
And do you have the feeling that it's What's its hardness like?
I've squeezed it as hard as I can, and then I can. The nerves obviously round it that's hurt.
Right.
When I squeeze it as hard as I can, because I'm seeing if that will crumble or.
Right.
But it's stayed the same.
Right, and so you think it's quite hard substance?
It's a very hard substance.
Right. Stone, metal, plastic, rubber, a bone. Would you be able to guess hazard?
I'd say metal or stone.
And now, do you have any sense of whether it's fixed or floating about of its own accord?
It's fixed.
You think it's fixed?
It's fixed.
So do you have a feeling that it's maybe attached?
Yeah, I'd imagine it's attached to...
Okay. Now, next question is, have you ever had a medical examination or any... You've not?
No, I've not.
Okay, and no x-rays or anything like that?
No.
It would be quite interesting to do that. Do you describe this experience as a UFO experience then?
Yeah.
Have you done any research into it? Have you read anyone else's account who claim to have been taken through things?
I read Whitley Strieber's book of Communion and how he could float, out the window, and regarding that as well. When I read Communion, I was living at Rendlesham, and my daughter, who was only about 3 years old then, came up tottered over to me as I was, and that book has got an embossed face of an alien on the front.
Yeah.
And she came up and pointed at the picture and said, "Daddy, he comes in my room at night," and that knocked me back, for 6.
Really?
Yeah.
So you would like it removed then?
I would, yeah.
Right. And do you think it's performing any function? Do you have a feel for that?
In the last 4 or 5 years, come to the realisation, why have I got that?
Right.
Am I being tracked? Or
Roger Lear, he reckons that they're information gathering devices. So in other words, maybe your mood, your heart rate, your physical state, your mental state, if that's connected to your central nervous system, could be sending that information elsewhere. We are currently seeking to help Mark have this object surgically removed and analysed. If anyone knows a good surgeon, please let us know. It might be something mundane, but if we don't examine it, we'll never know for sure. In the rest of today's show, I will be looking at lone gunman incidents which have occurred in the UK and pointing out that I don't think these events happened as they are portrayed in our docile mainstream media. Enjoy the rest of the show. All right, now, some of these incidents that we've had in the UK with Derek Bird, Thomas Hamilton, Michael Ryan, where people have gone into a town and shot people for no apparent reason, these also fracture society, or at least the communities where they occurred. Now, I've put a question mark on there because I actually don't think any of these guys were lone gunmen. And I would recommend this book for starters. This is it's Neil Sanders' book. You may have seen Neil Sanders on my TV show. It's called Your Thoughts Are Not Your Own. And this book spells out MK Ultra techniques, techniques of hypnosis, psychotronics, all of the different techniques that intelligence agencies have used to control people's minds and make them do things completely against their will. All right? And I suspect there's some of that being going on with these cases. Michael Ryan, people who witnessed Michael Ryan on his killing spree in 1987 said that he had a complete blank expression on his face. And his mother tried to stop him when he was halfway through his killing spree of killing 16 people, and he just shot his mother in cold blood. And then later on, after he'd barricaded himself into a school, he was expressing concern about his mother. It was as if he'd come out of a trance. Thomas Hamilton, this is the Dunblane Massacre. I recommend this book by Sandra Utley. This book will get you close to the truth about what happened in Dunblane. Hamilton allegedly killed 16 children and then a school teacher and then himself. Now, if you read this book and the evidence that it uncovers, you'll realise that Hamilton didn't kill himself, right? And once you understand that, you realise that his killer has never been named or uncovered, right? Now, you would have thought if someone had killed someone in the act of trying to kill children, they would have been made a hero, but we've never heard who that person is. So it's my opinion that Hamilton was in some way steered to do what he did, because Hamilton ran boys' clubs and he had a lot of videos and photographs of semi-naked boys that he was sharing with a lot of police officers in Central Scotland Police. And he was regularly writing letters to two MPs and some of the chiefs of police in central Scotland. So he had a lot of dirt on a lot of people. So it's possible that there are people who wanted to get rid of him. I think he was manipulated somehow. Maybe mind control, I don't know. But there's huge question marks over what happened at that school. And of course, we haven't got all of the records of what happened, because they actually, some of the evidence that was in the inquiry, there was a secrecy order put on it for 100 years. So there's a whole shelf of evidence that no one's seen that's been locked away for 100 years. And that includes some of the autopsy reports. And part of, I believe, part of Hamilton's autopsy reports, which shows that he had 2 fatal gunshot wounds. So he couldn't possibly have killed himself. So there's massive question mark over the Thomas Hamilton incident. Now, one of these cases that I've done quite a lot of digging on is the next one. This is Derek Bird, 2010, taxi driver who allegedly one morning wakes up, glorious sunny day, 2nd of June, kills his twin brother, kills his solicitor, and then goes and randomly kills 10 more people and allegedly kills himself. Now, back in 2010 when this happened, what I did was I just looked at his list of victims to see if any of them stood out as perhaps having a motive. And one of them I did find a potential motive, right? This is Kevin Commons, who was a solicitor. Right? This is Kevin Commons, who was a solicitor. He was a top solicitor, ran his own practice in Cumbria. 6 months prior to the shootings, there was Cumbrian floods. Now, people were saying that these floods were caused by the water company, right? Because the rainfall was not unprecedented, apparently. And there's a particular reservoir called a Thirlmere Reservoir, which they'd been overfilling, allegedly, right? And that exacerbated the floods. This is what Kevin Commons' law firm was saying, and it was suing United Utilities, the water company, alleging that they caused the floods. Now, you're talking thousands of houses, each with £10,000, £20,000 worth of damage. A police officer died in these floods. So you're talking a huge legal case. And if you read articles such as this one, they're pretty convincing that perhaps this water company was negligent and exacerbated these floods. This is Marcus Nixon, who continued the legal action against United Utilities after Kevin Commons had been murdered by Derek Bird, and I did speak to him briefly. I'll mention that in a second. So what made me suspicious was this article, because the 2 leading figures at United Utilities both stepped down shortly after Derek Bird went on his killing spree. And I just thought that was a bit of a coincidence. This article says that United Utilities dismissed the claim that their chief executive, Philip Green, is considering stepping down. And you can see the date on there. It's the 24th. So it's a week before Derek Bird's killing spree. The main guy is going to step down. It says that dismissed claim, but he did step down not long after. And the managing director, Charlie Cornish, also stepped down in June of 2010. So the 2 main guys stepped down round about the time of the Derek Bird incident. This is Philip Green, the chief executive, who stepped down with David Cameron. He's got some very powerful friends. He used to be the director and chief operating officer at Reuters. So the point I'm making is, if Kevin Commons' legal action had been successful, this guy, chief exec of United Utilities, probably would have been in prison, right? Probably, because the police officer died in those floods, and if they had been found negligent, he's the top guy, so he's the one who would get the blame. I'm not saying that he had anything to do with what happened with Derek Bird. I'm saying that this guy would have ended up in prison had Kevin Commons' legal action been successful. So I just thought, well, perhaps Derek Bird's been mind-controlled, as set out in this book by Neil Saunders, that it's possible to make people do things against their wishes. And I looked no more into it. I didn't actually look at CCTV evidence or any physical evidence on the day. I just thought that maybe the guy, I didn't question whether he had actually killed these people. And then I received an email just last year. It said, "The main reason I'm contacting you is I was fascinated by your brief talk done whilst you were touring on the Cumbria massacre. I was particularly interested in the claim that United Utilities Water Company were being held culpable for the Cumbria flooding previous to the massacre. Anyway, there is overwhelming evidence that points to a false flag event perpetrated by a possible paramilitary individual using an identical car to Derek Bird, the alleged murderer. Have you looked at this incident in detail at all? I have done quite a bit of research regarding this and I'm convinced this is a state-sponsored massacre. Please get in touch. Okay, so I went to see this witness, I looked at this person's evidence, and based on that I interviewed him, and then I went to Cumbria. And I've spoken to quite a few witnesses because I think, as I'm going to explain now, I think it is very smelly. Now, let's just explain what happened on June the 2nd, 2010. This is the mainstream version. Derek Bird, taxi driver. He goes to a place called Lamplugh. He goes into his twin brother's house and murders him in cold blood. Right? This is at 5 o'clock in the morning. He then goes to his solicitor's house at 10:20 in the morning. So there's over a 5-hour gap between these two murders. And I'll come back to why I think that might be the case. He then drives straight into Whitehaven where he pulls up at a taxi rank, he kills a taxi driver, shoots another taxi driver, shoots 2 more taxi drivers, and then makes his way to Egremont where he kills a few people there. He's mainly shooting people out of his window. He's stopping his cab, asking them to come over for the time and that kind of thing, and then just shooting them. He then goes to Seascale, kills 3 people there. He kills 12 people in total, injures 11, I think, drives into the woods, dumps his car, and then goes into the woods and allegedly shoots himself. So that's the official story. Now, you would imagine that there's mountains of witness testimony, and there is, but there are problems with it. There were, I think, around about 90 people gave statements or were cross-examined at the inquest. This is first-hand witnesses who saw what happened. Now, I've tried to get copies or transcripts of those witness testimonies, and I haven't been able to, and I'm going to explain what happened. So I've been relying on mainstream media articles. Now, the problem with all of the mainstream media articles of witness statements, and there's lots of witness statements of people who allegedly saw the gunman doing his dirty deeds all the way around here, right? None of them ask the witness what the gunman looked like. It's assumed right from word go that it was Derek Bird. So it's as if they don't need a description of the criminal, of the gunman. So you don't get any descriptions. So that's a major problem, which is why we need the initial statements. Now, you would imagine also there'll be mountains of CCTV, because this is a very busy town with CCTV cameras all over the place. And he actually got out of his car when he shot at one of the taxi drivers. But they've put out a tiny amount of CCTV. And the amount in the CCTV that they have put out shows a major anomaly, which I'm going to explain to you in a second. This is an article from the Daily Express, and it says, images recorded by a surveillance camera are understood to show in high definition the exact moment Bird pumps bullets into the head of his 43-year-old colleague. The footage is so horrific it can never be shown to the public, say police. So they're saying they have got high definition images showing Derek Bird with his gun, right? But there's no images of Derek Bird with a gun that I've been able to find. Not one CCTV or still image, either before the incident or during the incident. Show me an image of Derek Bird with a gun and I might believe he shot someone. Can you believe that? This guy shot 12 people, or killed 12 people, and shot 11 others, and there's not an image of him with a gun in the public domain. This is the only image they've actually put out. It's a CCTV clip where he drives along, he's fleeing the taxi rank for the first time here after he's allegedly just shot one taxi driver. This is all they've given us. Right? Now, I don't think that shows a gun, and I don't think you can make out who's in that vehicle. The only image I have been able to find which allegedly shows Derek Bird with a gun. Right? Why can't they show us those high-definition images that they described and just blur out the victim? We've got no image of him in the street with a gun. Now, the CCTV images that they have released, I'm just going to go through some of them. This is him at 5:06 in the morning in Frizzington, allegedly staking out Kevin Commons, who was his second victim. This is Derek Bird's car here. It's a Citroen Picasso. Now, I'm just going to run through what happened in Whitehaven. So he shot his twin brother at 5 in the morning. 10:20, he shot his solicitor in another village. He's driven into Whitehaven. Now, he drives into Whitehaven. He stops his car, winds the window down. He calls over Darren Rocastle, pumps 2 bullets into him. He dies. He then moves his car about 15, 20 feet further forward, jumps out the car, and he runs up the street where he pursues another taxi driver and he shoots him, right? He survives, Don Reed. He then gets back in his car, he drives off, and he drives right the way around the town centre in a big square, and he comes back past the same taxi rank, okay? This time, he just pumps 2 bullets into the side of a building, and some CCTV from that incident has been released, because you see all of the people duck. But he doesn't kill anyone or hit anyone in that incident, just 2 bullets into the side of the hairdressers. He then speeds off. He goes round a corner where he stops at some traffic lights. We all stop at traffic lights when we just killed someone. Anyway, supposedly another taxi driver, he calls over, comes to the window, shoots him, Paul Wilson. He survives, just gets scratched on the cheek, which is unusual. He actually says in his statement that he thought he'd been shot with a blank. And a blank can cause some damage if you... So he supposedly shot him at point blank range and he survived with just a scratch. Anyway, he then goes on to another part of Whitehaven where he shoots at another taxi driver and the passenger. He then goes off to Egremont and the other places. Okay, so this is him, and you can check all of these images on CCTV, on BBC website and on Whitehaven News websites. They've all been released. So this is him after he's shot Darren Rowcastle and shot the other taxi driver. He's got back in the car and he's driving away for the first time. He then drives around the block in a big square. So this is Duke Street here, where the taxi rank is to his left. This is 3 streets away. This is Lowther Street. So he's coming back round the second time to shoot into the taxi rank again. This is Bird's vehicle here, and this is the hairdressers is just there. So he fires a bullet out his window, and you see these people duck. So he fires 2 bullets, and then he speeds off up this street. He then turns left, comes down this street. This is where he stops at the traffic lights, where he allegedly shoots someone here, but you don't actually see that. All right, now I'm going to show you these images again. Let's just go back. This image is his vehicle at the end of his killing spree, which is dumped at the end of a country lane. He's gone off into the woods. I'm going to show you the video that this comes from. This is from a helicopter.
Derek Bird's few hours of carnage ended near here. What made him start the shootings that ended with 12 people, 13 including himself, dead.
See there, that's a taxi sign on top of his car, okay? Because it was a taxi, allegedly. Now, this is, as I said, this is after he's shot at Darren Rowcastle. You can see there's clearly something on the top of his car, looks like a taxi sign. And I think they're the same thing, because you've got a little yellow arm or something there to the side, and the vehicle's the other way around. You can see. I think they're probably the same vehicle. Now, and I think it's something like that what we're looking at. Now, if we just summarise these images that I've just showed you, 6 minutes past 5 in the morning, there's no taxi sign on top of the car. Then we've got 10:32 taxi sign on top of the car. 2 streets or 3 streets later, a minute later, no taxi sign. And drives past the taxi rank again, no taxi sign. So this is him driving past the rank after he fires into it the first time, and this is him the second time. So where's the taxi sign gone on top of the car? There is some doubt also about these logos along the side of the car, but you can't really see in the images whether it's there or not. And then this is around the corner again, just a minute later, no taxi sign, and then at the end of the killing spree, taxi sign on top of the car. Okay. Now, what I think this suggests is that there was 2 vehicles, a replica vehicle. I think this possibly is Derek Bird's car, and this is Derek Bird's car. And I think we've maybe got an operative here. Now, I'm going to explain why I think that is the case. When the killer reaches C scale, he kills 3 people. The second person who he kills is called Michael Pike, which was witnessed by a 10-year-old boy and his mother, and they got a very clear view of the gunman and what happened. So the Daily Telegraph interviews Jordan, the 10-year-old boy, and he gives an account. I managed to interview his mother on audio. So Jordan speaks first in this interview, and then his mother. And I'm just going to show that interview. So this person, she saw the gunman for over 30 seconds.
We were just walking past a curve just near the shop. So this person on his bike just came up, and then the driver just came, shot his back wheel shot, and then shot his face on the cheek there. And then he just stared me and my mum in the eyes, so then he just drove off.
Right.
I'd seen him approaching the back wheel of Mike's car with the left-hand wing, front wing, very, very slowly, and thought, what on earth is he doing, as you would do. And then I heard two noises. I didn't even know there was shotgun at the time. It was just two really loud bangs.
Right.
Then it seemed like 30 seconds a minute, stirring at us, and then phew, off he went. That was on the news.
Right.
Obviously, the picture of the man, it looked nothing like what I thought that I'd seen.
And just tell us description of the vehicle and the person in the car.
It was a Citroen car. I can't remember the registration because it's something that I just don't think of. The person that I thought that I'd saw was probably late 20s and black spiky hair.
What was the length of the hair?
Probably inch and a half, spiked up.
Okay.
So then he just drove off. I don't know why he'd do that. I don't know who would do that, but then I know who would.
You found out?
Yeah, him. It's shocking, really. I don't know why a person would do such a thing like that.
Now, the events in Whitehaven, witnesses, you've got two taxi drivers who knew him. You've got, sorry, more than that, there was a guy around the corner who also knew him, Paul Wilson. These are all people who knew him, who were reporting what happened to the police. The woman in the sandwich shop didn't know his name, but knew him by face, knew how old he was. So these people are all giving descriptions to the police, right? This went out on air quite early and was not repeated, this particular report.
It's just gone 12:30, time for a summary of the news with Heather Wainwright.
There are unconfirmed reports that 2 people have died in a shooting incident in West Cumbria. Armed police are looking for a man said to be in his 30s with a shaven head, driving a dark grey or silver Citroen Picasso. The registration ND55ZFC.
So how can they get that so wrong in his 30s when all the people who knew him when he first pulls up to the taxi rank? Now, that clip there, Channel 4 made a documentary all about these killings, and they actually played this radio broadcast, but they cut out the bit where it says in his 30s. They cut that out. Now, if they're not trying to hide anything and they're just wanting to produce a report on what actually happened, why do they need to cut that out? All right, now, I'm not sure, from this, I'm not sure whether Derek Bird killed all of them, one of them, or none of them. I don't know. I suspect from this evidence that there was a second vehicle involved. Why they haven't put a taxi sign on top of it, I don't know. And perhaps Derek Bird had just fitted that sign. I'm not sure. But it also looks as though there's possibly an operative involved, at least in C-scale. So I wanted to get all of the witness statements, right from the first witness to the last. So I contacted the coroner. And I said I would like to obtain copies of the court transcript and the coroner's report for the Cumbrian shootings case involving Derek Bird. They then came back to me and said, can you give me some more information, please? Can you give me more details about yourself and tell me what is your interest in the case? I said, well, as far as I'm aware, I thought the reports should be available to the public, and as far as I'm aware, there's no need for me to divulge information to the coroner about who I am. Okay, so they then came back to me and said, well, only interested persons as defined in the Coroner's Act and the relevant rules are entitled to request notes of evidence from inquest proceedings. There is no general right for the public to have copies. It was for that reason that the coroner asked what your interest in the case was. So I then said, right, okay, well, my interest in the case is to find out an accurate timeline of events so that we can create an accurate documentary film we are involved in producing for television. All of the information publicly available is second-hand and therefore not necessarily accurate. The coroner's report will be used so we can be sure of the facts in our TV documentary. So the coroner then comes back to me and asks me a whole load of questions. Dear Mrs. Hall, to enable me to further consider your request, I shall need more details. Your address, your role in the preparation of the documentary, who has commissioned the programme, the producer, where it is proposed to be aired, which TV channels, the scope of the programme, are any of the victims actively participating, what exactly are you seeking? David Roberts, Her Majesty's Coroner. So he's clearly considering giving me information, otherwise he wouldn't be asking those questions, right? He's wanting to know who's making this documentary. Is it the BBC? So I answer all of his questions. There are the answers that I've given him, perfectly honest answers. And I've said to him that we are seeking to produce an accurate film about what happened that day and also why it may have happened. In order to get the facts as accurate as possible, a copy of the coroner's report or transcript is something we need in order to check what we have discovered so far is accurate and to see if there is anything we have missed in our interpretation of events. Now, he could have given me those documents from the coroner, from the inquest, and said, okay, I'm going to give you them, but don't release them on the internet. If you're going to use any quotes from them, can you have it approved by me? So he could have put conditions on there, knowing that all I'm trying to do is represent the truth. But what did he do? He wrote to me and said, having considered the matter and the issues involved, I do not consider that you are a proper person within the meaning of Regulation 27. What? What has he talked about? I'm not a proper person, right? So I thought, well, let's have a look at Regulation 27. And it says in Regulation 27, the coroner may provide any document or copy of any document to any person who, in the opinion of the coroner, is a proper person to have possession of it. So there's no actual rule on who can and who can't have the documents. It's just whether the coroner thinks you're a proper person. So there it is on official royal crested letter-headed paper, Richard D. Hall is not a proper person. So I'm going to get the t-shirt printed tomorrow. I've been living for 46 years on this planet under the illusion or the delusion that I was a proper person. Okay, so I thought, well, I've got a communication channel opened up with the coroner, so I'm going to put to him some of what I have learned. I've said, regarding the CCTV footage in Whitehaven showing the incident at Duke Street, where shots appear to be fired from a vehicle into the shops along Duke Street, we have learned that the gunman drove past the taxi rank on Duke Street twice, and the footage so far released is the second pass of the taxi rank, when the gunman did not get out of their vehicle. Why are the events which occurred minutes earlier on the first pass of the taxi rank not available on CCTV? This would have shown the gunman get out of their vehicle. Because if you see someone get out of a vehicle on CCTV, you can judge their build, the way that they walk, their hair, everything, his gait. So you're going to be able to identify whether it's him or not. All we've got is images of a vehicle. So I'm not convinced, based on the evidence that I've seen, that it was even there. Why has there been no CCTV, still photographs, or any images at all, either during or before the events, showing Derek Bird with a gun in his hand? One image was released showing a taxi from the side, which appears to be a person on their handheld radio. Why have witnesses described the gunman as being in his 20s with short dark hair? We have a very reliable witness who gave evidence at the inquest, who has given us a detailed statement. This person watched the gunman at close range for between 30 seconds and a minute. The gunman had short dark hair and was in his 20s. Why do witnesses we have interviewed insist the gunman's silver Citroen Picasso was definitely not a taxi? We have 3 reliable witnesses who state this, some of whom gave evidence at your inquest. In the Channel 4 documentary, the witnesses are all saying it was a taxi. We've got witnesses who are saying it wasn't a taxi. Why is it assumed that David Bird was murdered by Derek Bird when there is no eyewitness testimony to this event? What evidence links Derek Bird to the murder of David Bird? Why did police issue a description of the gunman, which was read out on a public radio station, stating that police were chasing a man in his 30s with a shaven head? And why does the vehicle, which was recovered in the woods, which is alleged to belong to the gunman, appear to have a taxi sign on the roof, when the gunman's vehicle, in all but one CCTV image, has no taxi sign on the roof? Finally, were any of these points raised at the inquest? So he then comes back to me and he says, coroners cannot enter into correspondence answering the type of questions you raise. Suffice to say, there was a huge investigation into the facts relating to these cases. All relevant evidence was before the jury, which they heard over a period of 4 weeks. Well, I wouldn't quite agree with him, because in an inquest, the coroner decides everything that the jury's going to see. It's not like a trial where you've got someone sticking up for Derek Bird who can insist certain things, and you've got two sides. Both sides can submit evidence. He decides everything that the jury sees. So if there's certain evidence which isn't quite as palatable for their story, he could quite easily leave that out. Now, I mentioned a potential motive as to why someone might want to get rid of Kevin Commons, who was the second person killed by Derek Bird, and it's to do with the Cumbrian floods. And people have said to me, well, that seems a bit extreme, Richard, killing all of those people just to cover up the murder of a solicitor. Why didn't you just bump him off? And I agree with that. I think it does seem a bit severe, but maybe there was more than one reason why these killings occurred. Now, I mentioned Marcus Nixon, who took over the legal action from Kevin Commons when he was murdered, and I rang Marcus Nixon. Now, he did move law firms. He works for a different law firm now, can't remember the name of it, but he continued to pursue the legal action against United Utilities with this other law firm. And I rang him, I think it was November last year, and he told me that that legal action had recently been dropped against United Utilities. All right? But one thing he didn't tell me was that he had been under investigation for fraud just last summer. Now, this guy is a successful medical negligence lawyer, probably got a bob or two. I think it's unlikely that he'll be doing false accounting. So I think these charges could be trumped up, right? So perhaps, and I'm only saying perhaps here, this is a way of getting him off this case. And the person who took over from Kevin Commons solicitors, a guy called Timothy Frost, he died a few weeks back of an extremely rare brain tumour. Just pointing that out. Don't know if it's relevant. So, assuming that this was a contrived event, and it does seem very fishy based on the evidence that I've sent, I don't know, as I say, I don't know what happened. I'm still looking for evidence, right? I am intending to investigate this further. So let's assume that it was contrived, that it was not just a lone gunman who woke up one day and decided to kill his mates. And as I say, I'll point you to this book as to the techniques that they can use to control people. Now, in mind control, they use trauma. Trauma is the thing that they use to fracture people's minds. And in Auschwitz, Joseph Mengele, the mind control doctor, he would experiment with twins. Now, what he would do, he would get one twin and he would make the other, torture the other twin in order to traumatize the first twin, or he might even kill them. So just think about that for a second. You've got a twin brother or sister, and they're tortured and then murdered right in front of your eyes. That twin, in many respects, is you. It's an identical copy of you. Can you imagine how much trauma that's going to cause you, seeing your twin murdered? Now, Derek Bird allegedly murdered his twin brother first. Okay. Now, but there's no witness to that. No one saw Derek Bird do that. So what I'm suggesting may have happened is that Derek Bird's brother was murdered by someone else. And another reason why I think that is, in one of the documentaries, David Bird, Derek Bird's brother, this witness said that he built a 4x4 vehicle and he took it to a scramble track, and the two of them, Derek Bird and David Bird, were having turns in it, going round and round this track, laughing their heads off, like two brothers who love each other. This was 1 week before the shootings. And he supposedly murdered this brother that he's on this scramble track with. So what I'm suggesting may have happened is that someone else has murdered the brother, but they've made Derek Bird watch it. Right? We've now got a 5-hour gap between David Bird murder and Kevin Commons, who I think could have been the real target. In that intervening 5 hours, is it possible that he was mind controlled, using the trauma that was induced by making him witness the murder of his twin brother? And of course, the next person they would want out would be the real target, Kevin Commons. Now, what happened after that, I'm not sure. I'm not sure who killed who in Whitehaven, because they've not given me enough evidence to base anything on. But I think at some point in the operation, it's possible that Derek Bird has been taken out, murdered, dumped in the woods, while another operative in an identical car bumps off several other people. That's what I think has possibly happened. But it's speculation. I'm speculating here based on knowledge of mind control and also based on facts I've been able to find out. Okay, and they always bring out a book very soon after these events, almost too soon after these events, which just backs up the official story. From start to finish, it gives you the official story that was reported in the media. And 1 month after the Derek Bird incident, we had the Raoul Moat incident. He shot 3 people. They didn't even bother to change the cover of their book. Now I've read the Raoul Moat book. I haven't read the other one. If Raoul Moat was alive today, he could easily sue the person who wrote this book. It's absolute crap. It's just, Raoul Moat was a bastard, Raoul Moat was a bastard, Raoul Moat was a bastard. Demonising him right from birth, saying how evil the guy was. He was a bouncer who was trying to start a gardening business. Now, and I suspect that Raoul Moat was used under mind control to target PC David Rathband. And the reason why I think he was targeting David Rathband is because what David Rathband knew about Lisa French's testimony at the London bombings. Because Lisa French here, David Rathband, police officer, was shot in the face twice by Raoul Moat. Rathband says he was definitely trying to kill him because he played dead, and if he hadn't played dead, he said he would have shot me again. All right? But Rathband miraculously survived. Now, Rathband's girlfriend was on the number 30 bus involved in the London bombings. Now, the alleged perpetrator of the number 30 bus bomb was a guy called Hasib Hussein. That guy was not on that bus because there's not a single witness, 6'4" Asian guy with a huge backpack on him, allegedly. There's no CCTV of him on that bus. There's no witnesses on that bus because there was quite a lot of survivors from the London bombings. No witnesses claim to have seen him or reliably spot him, right? Until the inquest in 2010, 2011, where Lisa French, who was on that bus, says that she saw him. She said that she saw the bomber that no one else had seen, and that she hadn't said that she had seen, up until 5.5 years after the London bombings. She's never mentioned the bomber. Okay, so suddenly she's seen a bomber. Now I think what's happened there is that they're having an inquest, and there's no way they can have that inquest without someone seeing the supposed bomber, because I think the bomb was planted on that bus, and the bomber was not there. See, they fled because they sussed that they were being set up. All right, so they couldn't have an inquest without at least one witness saying they saw the bomber. Lisa French was under a psychologist, cognitive behavioural therapy. She said she had over 20 sessions. This is before the inquest. She's going out with PC David Rathband. I think she was being prepped to give a false narrative of what she saw. She might not even know she's giving false testimony at the inquest. She's been messed with by a psychologist, but I think Rathband may have been asking questions about what she was being fed and what she was being asked to do. So that's why I think it's possible that Raoul Moat targeted Rathband, and Raoul Moat shot 2 other people beforehand in order to disguise the real motive. Now, I've gone into various circumstantial evidences as to why I think it was a contrived event. The whole thing was contrived. And another extract from David Rathband's book, which is right at the moment just before he gets shot in the face. He's describing Raoul Moat here. He says, "He was alone. His eyes told me that story. He never blinked and he never quivered. There wasn't a moment of doubt in his actions, nor an ounce of emotion." All right, so let's just look at some of these lone gunmen and put what I think are probably the real reasons why they did what they did. I think the Michael Ryan event might have been about gun control because they banned all semi-automatic weapons in the UK. I think Thomas Hamilton possibly gun control as well because they banned handguns, and also to protect certain things that were going on in Central Scotland Police. The Derek Bird, I'm suggesting that it's to prevent legal action against United Utilities, but as I said, there might be other reasons. And Raoul Moat to protect the false flag operation of 7/7. Now, Anders Breivik, who killed 77 people, some people have suggested that this was carried out as a warning to Norway, to the Norwegian government, because they weren't voting in the UN how they wanted them to. So in other words, they were pro-Palestinian, they were against the invasion of Libya. Mohammed Merah, he killed 7 people, killed a Jewish rabbi and children, but it turned out he was an asset of French intelligence. So a candidate for another patsy, I think. So we've got legislative reasons and just geopolitical. So what I'm trying to do is maybe spot a pattern in some of these cases, but I don't think I can spot one. I think they'll use these incidents for various reasons. And we might ask the question, well, will they do it again? Will they use this technique of lone gunmen losing their marbles to go and kill people so that they can get rid of certain undesirables? Well, I think that they will do. The reason why I think that is because if they're going to use these techniques, they have to convince everyone that these are lone gunmen, that there is no conspiracy to it. And they were doing this last summer. They were convincing people that these are lone gunmen. Just have a look at this.
Something I think you should see.
15 by gunman Stephen Morton in Southcliffe earlier today.
This place. You know the people. Reel them in.
Kept himself to himself. Stop wasting your time looking for answers.
Didn't anybody read the signs?
There weren't any signs.
Yeah, nobody ever sees anything in Southcliffe, do they?
I feel tired, Claire.
Yeah, me too.
What if we did something that caused him to do what he did?
Anna! He's dead! She is not coming back.
People don't commit mass murder in a town like this. What are you doing?
Maybe I'm looking for closure. That's what you meant to do, isn't it?
What Stephen did will never go away.
When do you get too old to start again?
Southcliffe, it's not that kind of place, is it?
It is now.
So, my opinion, their dramas are being used for purposes of propaganda just as much as the documentaries that I showed you earlier. Okay, and just to finish part 1 with this phrase, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they've been fooled. Now, after the break, we'll have a 15-20 minute break now. I'm going to talk about the historians Wilson and Blackett and an archaeological find which has been discovered in Gondifiath, just north of here. And we're also going to talk about my new film. But put the lights on now, we'll have a 15-minute break. Thanks for listening to part 1.